Welcome to Community Forum, a community service of CAN TV. I'm your host, Juan Carlos Hernandez. Our guest is Kris Smart from the organization Girls on the Run. It is a nationally recognized program that helps girls between the ages of 8 and 13 to learn life skills through running. And she's here to share about that. Welcome, Kris.
Thank you.
Well, tell us about this program, because when I was researching it, it was interesting that you based a program for girls and building their life skills on running. How does that work?
Well, running is really the medium that we use to teach the girls goal attainment.
Okay.
So what's great about running is that it's a physical activity, and that if you start at the beginning of a 12-week season, you start small, you're only running maybe a block. If that's all you can do, by the end of the time, you can actually run a 5K. And so any girl can run, all girls can have that experience. So it really helps us get them towards that goal attainment, which then helps us with the curriculum so that the lessons are interactive, that actually teach those life skills and the self-esteem.
Yeah, and you work with 2 age groups, right?
We do. So the first age group is 3rd through 5th graders, and they're in our Girls on the Run curriculum. And again, that's a 12-week, 24 session culminating in the 5K. And then the other session that we do is for older girls. So it's Girls on Track, and that's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And it's really geared towards those girls who have a little bit more life experience and more maturity.
Right.
But it's along the same themes.
Going through all sorts of changes, right? Too mentally, physically, and they're becoming young adults in many ways.
Right.
I'm still curious, though, about the history of Girls on the Run. Tell me about where it began and how it arrived here in Chicago, if somebody's curious about maybe joining a council, how they could go about that.
Well, Girls on the Run Chicago is part of Girls on the Run International, and we were founded in 1996 by Molly Barker, and she is a child development specialist and a social worker who also happened to be a triathlete, an Ironman.
Triathlete,
So she understands and knows that running is transformative, that it's a place where you can actually center yourself and figure out things. And so she integrated those 2 passions, which was youth development and running, in order to teach these life skills to the girls. So she started off with 1 school in Charlotte, and then after a couple of years she was featured in Runner's World magazine, where about 5 women here in the Chicagoland area read it, contacted Molly, and started it here at Burley Elementary School in Chicago, and then brought it to the rest of Chicagoland from there.
Wow. So it was one little, I think.
One little blurb, just one paragraph in Runner's World, and then it took off from there. Not only here in Chicago, but also we've got 220 different councils throughout the United States and Canada, and some councils are small. My neighbor moved to Tallahassee and started a council there, and it serves 20 girls.
20 girls.
Here in Chicago, we're in 7 counties, and we serve 8,000.
8,000 girls.
So yeah.
Wow. In all, how many girls does Girls on the Run serve, more or less, per year right now?
Girls on the Run Chicago serves about 8,000.
8,000, but
and overall about 100,000.
100,000.
Yeah. So throughout all the different councils, about 100,000 girls are reached with this message.
Okay, so that's how those women here started that first council in Chicago. They got curious, they made contact, they started it. Now, what if somebody wants to start a council of their own? How do they go about that? Like here in Chicago, through Girls on the Run Chicago.
All you would have to do is visit our website, and then you can check our locations to see if we actually do have a location at your school. There's a really great interactive map. You plug in your zip code and it pops up with all the sites in that area. Beyond that, it's a really simple process to start Girls on the Run. You fill out an application. You need to just make sure that you have a couple of volunteers who are willing to coach. You have a safe practice area. And if you're affiliated with the school, that the school is on board with it. And then from there, we walk you through the process. And I recently did it with my own daughter's school, so I understand what goes into starting a new school, and it was literally a few meetings with the administration, and then promoting it through, our student newspaper and our parent email. And then after that, I had more girls than I knew what to do with, so wanting to participate, which is a good.
It's a good problem to have.
Good problem to have. Yeah.
So, just to make it clear, if I want to start a council, I have to be tied to a school?
You don't. We also have some council, some programs that are tied to a park or a community center. We've had them at churches or boys and girls clubs, wherever you have girls that would like to participate in the program. School often makes sense because it makes a great after-school program. And schools often have a place where the girls can run safely or a classroom that we can use to do the program in.
Yeah, they have a gym.
Right.
Playground or something like that.
Here in Chicago, a lot of girls, we want to make sure that they're only outside when it's safe. So when it's icy, you need another place for them to run. So at my school, that actually meant that they did a few practices in hallways and stairwells before the ice receded this winter, and they were able to go outside.
And we had a long winter this
I was particularly rough on my girls. I made them go outside in February, but
wow.
never when it was icy. So,
and how would they respond?
They complained. But now they feel really hardy. There's a lot of teams that didn't go outside until maybe April because it wasn't safe in their particular area. And so my daughter was helping distribute materials for our new season, and she commented to one of the coaches coming to pick up that I had made her go outside when there was snow on the ground. Just wear your gloves. I mean, you're Midwestern.
Yeah,
we're
wear your gloves,
folk.
cover your mouth. And
there you go. As long as it's safe.
Right, that's what you want to make sure. Yeah.
Right.
And talking about safety, if somebody wants to become part of council, volunteer as a coach or something like that, is there a process of checking out who they are?
Right. For our coaches, our site coordinators, and even volunteers who decide that they want to run with a girl for our 5K, I need volunteers to actually run one-on-one with the girls for each of our 5Ks, just to make sure that we know where that girl is at all times.
Okay.
We background check everyone.
Oh,
So
wow.
they go through a background check. Our volunteer coaches also go through CPR training and first aid training, as well as the Girls on the Run training on how to actually do the curriculum. So we spend a lot of time making sure that that volunteer is appropriate. Beyond that, folks are welcome to volunteer at the 5K in other capacities. So at an aid station or at a registration tent or handing out water as the girls cross the finish line. Somebody has to be there to put the medal around their neck, and we need folks for all of those different roles.
Do they have to also go through the background check?
Those folks don't.
Right, because they're not running with someone.
Because they're not one-on-one with a child. And they're always within a group experience.
Okay. Now, what if a parent says, I want to run with my child. I really, I'm grateful for what she's learned and how she's developed, and I want to do that.
Absolutely. We use volunteers. Parents are usually the ones who actually do run with their girl at that 5K experience. Depending on the different school community, there might be, different requirements for a parent to volunteer during practice that we as an organization respect. So for instance, for my daughter's school, they do have to go through a background check even to volunteer at practice.
Okay.
But we used volunteers, parents, to help us run our practice 5K. So before the girls actually show up at their 5K at their end of the season, everyone does a practice 5K just so that they know they can do it. About 3 weeks out from the Girls on the Run 5K. And I had probably about a dozen parents who helped me with that. And I know that when I've gone on other site visits, other parents have also shown up. I was in Lake County at a site visit, and they did a beautiful practice 5K in a nature area, which was gorgeous. But they had 2 parents for every child, just to make sure that they were safe out on that course, but also because it was a lot of fun. So, and teachers come out.
Teachers come out too.
Principals come out. I had one girl who actually ran the 5K with her math teacher, and he looked forward to it all year. And he would go out, the girls would be practicing and doing the lessons and learning the lessons that they needed for that particular day. And she said that she waved to her math teacher who wasn't one of the coaches, and he just was running in the neighborhood training for the 5K himself.
Oh, wow. Wow. I certainly want to get into the lessons that you teach for the 2 age groups, but you've mentioned parents and teachers, and I'm curious as to how they respond, and you did touch on it a bit, but how they respond to what these girls are learning and how they're growing through this program.
Well, I think the best example I can give you is my own team. So I had a parent come up to me after practice and say, my daughter used to slam the door and stomp upstairs and yell down the stairs, whenever we had a disagreement. And the other day, instead she said, I feel frustrated when you don't listen to me because I have something to say and I want to feel heard, and I would like you to stop and listen to what I have to say. And that kind
Wow.
of changed their dynamic of how they interacted as mother-daughter. And she said, where did she learn that? I had to think that she learned that here. And I said, that was actually the lesson that we taught on Monday. So that's where she got it.
Wow, that's...
And I encourage you to use I feel statements back. And so
Right.
then that changed their dynamic as mother-daughter, which I thought was really fantastic.
So these are lessons that they're not just using at school, they're actually
They're using everywhere.
everywhere, and they're taking them home and teaching others by extension.
Yeah, and it's a little bit interesting when your daughter uses those statements on you in order to get out of cleaning her room. And so,
Right.
But it's great for her to be able to really articulate what she's thinking and feeling and the struggles that she has. So when my daughter was having a little bit of trouble in math, she was able to really articulate how she felt about math and how she felt about that instructor and what she was frustrated with in a way that I noticed she was unable to do the previous year, and together we were able to identify a way to help her through it. And then our coaches tell us and our parents tell us that they then take those lessons that they learn as a coach and they bring them into the boardroom and they bring them into meetings and they bring them into their relationship. And so all of a sudden you're standing in front of your partner and you're saying, I feel this way when you, and my husband's like, oh. And then he says the same thing back, and we're able to kind of negotiate in a respectful way disagreements or conflict. And you can use it at work, you can use it at home, you can use it anywhere.
So that's probably, I think, one of the most, not that all the other lessons aren't important, but it's probably one of the most important lessons I think you could learn is that conflict resolution. Tell me about the other lessons you have for the 3rd to 5th graders, please, and how they participate and what they're about.
Well, we've got some lessons on gossip, which are really great. We talk about how you can't take some of that back. You can't undo it. So we talk about gossip as being a tube of toothpaste, and the coach pushes all the toothpaste out of the tube onto a plate and then asks the girls to put it back, and they can't. You can't put it back. So you can put some of it back, but not all of it. And we talk about how words can be like that and actions can be like that. So they really understand the impact of their behaviors. We also talk about about nutrition and about physical fitness, and we talk about kind of like a healthy mental life, a healthy physical life, healthy relationships. So our healthy lifestyle that we want those girls to build, it's mental, spiritual, physical. So it's the whole package for them, so that they really can go forward understanding their worth in the world and how to have that healthy life. We talk about drug awareness. We talk about tobacco awareness with the littler girls, but really with the older girls. And then we also talk about media literacy. So what is an advertisement really trying to get? I mean,
is that what you call it when you're presenting it to 3rd graders, media literacy?
A little bit, yeah.
Really?
They're pretty savvy.
Okay.
And we also talk about internet safety. We're talking a lot more about social media these days. So we're talking about cyber awareness. And those sorts of things that really critically impact the girls. So, even a 3rd grader, if they have access, they might have an Instagram account. And so what does that mean? And how do you make sure that you remain safe?
Wow. And so you walk them through these lessons, and but they meet twice a week, right?
Twice a week for 90 minutes each. So a typical practice is we start with a snack because you can't concentrate if you're hungry.
Right. Okay.
So first rule in youth development.
Okay, what do you give them a burger? No, kidding.
Usually it's like a fresh fruit and just a little something, a little carb and maybe some cheese. Like depending. For my team, I had some allergies, and so we had to really negotiate what was going on with that, which was great. We all tried new things. Then after that, we introduced kind of the theme for the day and the lesson of the day. Do a short exercise to warm up, get a little bit deeper into the discussion through activities. We'll do an activity which really teaches the lesson and exemplifies the lesson, and then we process. So we sit down and we really talk about what's going on, which is why the number of girls per team is so critically important. So we can't have 30 girls on a team because you want them to process and to really be able feel free to speak. And so we keep the team size to between 8 and say 20. And my team was 20, and we actually broke into 2 groups to have the discussions so that each girl could be heard. After that, then we go into a longer workout. And in the beginning, that's a relay. You know, so they don't even realize they're running yet. And they're just having fun. But near the end, then they're actually trying to get as much distance as they can in a safe way. We have lap counters, and so they'll get a rubber band or a sticker or a paper clip that helps them remember how many laps that they've done, depending on where their school is. Some schools have tracks. My school doesn't, so we ran a block. And so we had coaches on every corner to keep the girls safe, and they ran around, and then they came around and got like a sticker or something. We even took face paint and wrote "Girls on the Run is so much fun" and a letter per lap to see how they got there. And then all working up towards that goal attainment at the end, which is the 5K.
And you have several 5K runs.
We do.
Right. When do they take place?
Depending on the season.
Okay.
So in the spring, we have a 5K series, and one here serving Chicago is in Grant Park. Serving North Cook County and Lake County is Vernon Hills, and then we'll have another in DuPage County. In the fall, it is everyone goes to the same 5K, which is at Montrose Harbor. Yeah.
So everybody comes in from
as far away as Kankakee and Gurnee, all the way down to the Chicago lakefront for Montrose Harbor, which is a great gathering of all those different girls. So our spring season, we are accepting new sites. So if parents are out there and they'd love to have a new site, they can feel free to apply. We also are accepting some sites in the fall as well. We find it's a little easier to get it started in the spring because you got all fall to talk to parents, whereas over the summer it's a little bit more difficult. But we have a staff who would be more than delighted to help anyone through that process to make a new site or to revive an existing site.
Yeah, and so how they just go to your website and look?
They just go to our website
and contact
start a program. There's a little on our tabs, there's a little starter program, and you can find a location to see whether your school, community, or community has a program already. Or you can just start a program, and it's usually a couple of meetings with an administrator at the school. I put out a few flyers and an email to all the parents in the grades that were going to participate, and from there volunteer coaches came forward, girls registered, and it was pretty easy.
Wow. And is there a cost involved? I mean, like, I'm sure some parents or teachers are saying, well, am I going to have to ask my school for some money or put money of my own in this?
So the program does have a cost for girls to participate, but that cost is determined by how many girls within their school community receive free or reduced lunch. So those that have a high rate of receiving free or reduced lunch, say 80 or 90%, their cost is very, very low. And then we also offer financial assistance. Girls in the middle income, we subsidize their experience. We understand that, parents in those communities are, they might live paycheck to paycheck, and so we want to make it affordable for them. And then higher income, they pay for their own experience. So, but regardless of whether you're high income or low income, we raise money to make financial assistance available. So you could be a girl in a very affluent school whose parents are not affluent. Or who are going through a rough time. And I want to make sure that this program is available for all girls, whether you're urban or rural or suburban. It's for every girl can get something from this program and learn that life skill that'll help this next generation really become the leaders that we know they can be.
Right, and getting back to the life skills, the life skill that you mentioned, we talked about the age group of 3rd to 5th graders.
Right.
And you also serve 6th to 8th graders.
We do.
And tell me how that's different from those lessons that they learn at the younger age, and how you carry that out.
Well, an 8th grader is really different than a 3rd grader.
Yes, obviously so.
3rd graders are trying to negotiate, friendships. And by
Uh-huh.
the time you're in 8th grade, you're negotiating romantic relationships, and you're
True.
growing up, and you've got a lot more concerns about things like academics. And depending on where you live in the Chicagoland area, you're trying to get into a good high school. So we really help the girls with those sorts of relationships and talk head on about what a healthy partner relationship looks like, so that if you're in an unhealthy relationship, that it's okay to step out of it, that you as an individual and as a human being deserve to be treated well, just treated with respect. So we start there. We also go more deep into things like substance abuse. By that age, friends, people in their lives, they're noticing that folks are starting to experiment with alcohol and substances and tobacco. And so the conversations that we have with 8th graders, 7th graders, 6th graders are very, very different than maybe the same sort of lesson with a 3rd grader. So we really make it age appropriate. We talk a lot more about like the idea of a queen bee in a middle school setting. And
What is a queen bee?
kind of like a girl who is the most popular and decides who is kind of highest in the social order of a middle school. And so they can have a lot of impact and influence. So kind of like that mean girl theory. And so what does that mean, and what does it mean to be her? What does it mean to be out? What does it mean to not have access? And how does that feel? So we talk through a lot of those different things and give the girls the tools to be able to say, you know what, I reject it. I reject that idea. And I'm going to be friends with who I want to be friends with, and I get to be myself. Which is something that when you are older is really useful skill to have, not only in high school and college, being able to stand up for your own decisions and not be as influenced by peer pressure. In the business world, you want to be able to stand up for your ideas and to have confidence in yourself. And so we find a lot of parents and coaches come back to us and say, these skills, I wish I had this when I was a little girl. I wish I had this when I was in middle school. I'm glad I have it now.
Wow. So we're getting close to the end of the show, and I'm curious as to some alumni who's moved on from Girls on the Run, but obviously not from the lessons they've taken. Tell me about some of those stories, if any that come to mind, about how the impact of these lessons has just stayed with them throughout their education, college education, and also their careers.
So we have a lot of girls who grow up to be very able women. And they come back to us and tell us about how the program allowed them to get through difficult times in their life, but also gave them the confidence to apply to a school that maybe they wouldn't have thought that they would have gotten into before, to be successful at school, to go into a field that maybe is male dominated, but to have the confidence in themselves that they could do it. And so they go into STEM, which is an important area for women to get into. They go into leadership experiences, and then they come back and teach. And they come back and coach. And so those are often, they'll call the office and I want to coach, and I don't have a girl yet, but I want to coach. And they let us know that they're that alumni coming back to really have an impact on the community. We've heard a lot of girls who started thinking about the world and being actively involved in community service through the project that they did as a third grader. So they decided that they were going to clean up their neighborhood as a third grader, and got all of the girls on their team to help them do that. And then they've gone into environmental science, or they've been an AmeriCorps member, or they've gone into Peace Corps, or they've gone into the nonprofit world or into the sciences and really taken it from there, and seeing the responsibility that they have for the community that they live in, starting in that first lesson that they had as a third grader, when we widened it from just learning about yourselves to really feeling responsible for your community.
Well, thanks so much for coming out today and sharing that information with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And to you, thank you for joining us. Community Forum is a community service of CAN TV. If your nonprofit organization would like to work with CAN TV, call 312-738-1400 and ask for nonprofit services. Tune into Community Forum for local issues and concerns every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. on CAN TV 21. I'm Juan Carlos Hernandez. Thank you for joining us.